The rain pelted against the windshield, a steady drumbeat that matched the unease settling in Donna's chest. She gripped the steering wheel tightly as her truck rattled beneath her, threatening once again to give up entirely. Donna had grown used to this familiar betrayal, the engine sputtering, the grinding of gears, the sudden jolt as the truck began to stall. It had become an unfortunate part of her life, and every time she took it to the garage, the mechanic would sigh, shake his head, and tell her it would cost more than last time. She couldn't keep up. Living alone after her husband's unexpected death 2 years ago had been a tough transition, but the truck's relentless need for repairs was draining her savings faster than she could haul goods across the state. The truck was her lifeline, her only means of income, and yet it had become her biggest burden. As she coasted to the side of the road and the engine coughed its final protest, Donna pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, fighting the sting of frustrated tears. She was stuck, again, alone, again. But not for long. The neon sign for the only diner in the small town of Silver Bend flickered in the distance. Donna had come here more times than she could count, seeking refuge when her truck stranded her on the outskirts of town. She gathered her things and braced herself against the rain as she made the short trek to the diner. Inside, the warmth of the diner was a stark contrast to the cold, wet world outside. It smelled of coffee and fried food, the kind of greasy comfort that kept truckers coming back. Donna spotted a booth in the corner and sat down, her back stiff with exhaustion. Annie, the waitress who had served her countless times before, appeared with a steaming cup of coffee and a sympathetic smile. "Truck again?" Annie asked, setting the cup down. Donna nodded. "Same story. I don't know how much more I can take." Annie sighed, glancing out the window at the pouring rain. "You know, maybe it's not bad luck. You've been to Hank's garage too many times for it to be just a coincidence." Donna frowned. Hank had been the town mechanic for years, fixing trucks for long-haul drivers and locals alike. He'd always seemed honest, if not a little gruff. But the last few months had been a string of breakdowns and repairs that never seemed to stick. "Maybe you should get a second opinion," Annie added, before hurrying off to serve another table. As Donna stared out at the rain-soaked parking lot, the door swung open and a man stepped inside. He was tall, lean, and had the look of someone who didn't belong in a place like this. His clothes were too clean, his hair too neatly combed for the gritty world of Silver Bend's truck stops and roadside diners. Shane Callahan, though Donna didn't know his name yet, was a man on the run from his own demons. A Michelin-starred chef who had burned out from the intense world of high-end restaurants, he had come to Silver Bend to disappear for a while, to figure out what was left of his life after his restaurant imploded. The stress, the critics, the endless pressure, it had crushed him. And now he was looking for something simpler, something that didn't involve gourmet dishes and impossible expectations. He sat a few tables away, ordering nothing more than coffee and staring out at the rain, much like Donna. But there was something different about him, something that set him apart from the usual drifters and truckers who passed through town. He was observing, taking everything in, his mind working even as he sat still. When Annie refilled Donna's cup, she leaned down and whispered, "That's Shane. New guy in town. Used to be some big-shot chef out east. Keeps to himself mostly." Donna nodded absently, her mind still on her truck and the nagging suspicion that Annie had planted. Something wasn't right, but she wasn't sure how to prove it. Later that evening, after most of the regulars had trickled out and the diner had quieted down, Donna found herself sitting across from Shane, who had come over without much preamble. He had noticed her staring out at the parking lot, lost in thought. "You're the one with the truck, right?" he asked, his voice smooth but tired, like someone who had seen more than his share of late nights and hard decisions. Donna blinked, startled by the sudden conversation. "Yeah, it's a piece of junk." Shane smiled faintly, his eyes scanning her face. "I heard. You keep bringing it to the same guy." "Hank, yeah, I don't have much of a choice." Shane leaned back, sipping his coffee. "I'm not a mechanic, but I've been in enough kitchens to know when someone's cutting corners. You ever get the feeling he's not really fixing the problem?" Donna's heart skipped a beat. It was exactly what Annie had hinted at, but hearing it from someone else, a stranger, made the possibility feel more real and more terrifying. She had trusted Hank because she had no other option. The idea that he could be taking advantage of her was almost too much to bear. "I don't know," Donna said slowly. "It's crossed my mind, but what can I do about it? He's the only mechanic in town." Shane studied her for a moment, then leaned forward, his expression serious. "There's always something you can do. If he's messing with your truck, you need proof." Donna stared at him, her pulse quickening. "How am I supposed to get proof?" Shane's lips curved into a small, almost mischievous smile. "We'll figure something out. Over the next few days, Donna and Shane formed an unlikely partnership. Shane's natural curiosity and ability to see through deception, honed from years of dealing with cutthroat restaurant politics, helped Donna begin to unravel the mystery of her constant breakdowns. Together, they came up with a plan to get the evidence they needed. Shane enlisted the help of Gus, an older man who had been a regular at the diner for as long as Donna could remember. Gus was a retired rancher, but more importantly, he knew his way around trucks. He had never trusted Hank, calling him a snake in the grass on more than one occasion. When Shane explained what they suspected, Gus was all too happy to help. They installed hidden cameras in Donna's truck before her next visit to Hank's garage. The plan was simple: let Hank perform the usual repairs, then check the footage to see if he was deliberately sabotaging her vehicle. The day after her truck's latest breakdown, Donna drove it to Hank's, her heart pounding in her chest as she handed him the keys. He gave her the usual grim smile and went to work, oblivious to the fact that he was being watched. Later that evening, Donna, Shane, and Gus gathered at the diner to review the footage. As the grainy video played on Shane's laptop, Donna's hands clenched into fists. There, clear as day, was Hank swapping out parts that didn't need replacing, loosening bolts that should have been tightened, and setting her up for yet another breakdown down the road. That son of a, Gus muttered under his breath, shaking his head. Donna felt a rush of anger, hot and raw. She had been struggling for months, pouring every penny into her truck, and Hank had been playing her the entire time. Shane leaned back in his chair, watching Donna carefully. Now we have proof. Donna nodded, her mind racing. But as satisfying as it was to catch Hank in the act, it wasn't enough. She couldn't just confront him, she needed to make sure he couldn't do this to anyone else. Armed with the footage, Donna and Shane devised a plan to confront Hank in a way that would ensure he couldn't simply weasel out of it. They enlisted the help of Annie, who had a way of knowing everyone's business in town, and quietly spread the word among the regulars at the diner. By the time Donna showed up at Hank's garage the next day, half the town was watching. Hank was caught off guard when Donna walked into his office, a calm determination in her eyes. Behind her, Shane stood with his arms crossed, the laptop tucked under his arm. Hank's smug grin faded as he looked between Donna and Shane. He was used to Donna being quiet, submissive, even a woman trying to get by without much fuss. But something had changed. Her posture was straighter, her chin lifted higher, and there was no hint of the desperation he had seen in her before. "I'm here to talk about the truck," Donna said, her voice steady. Hank shifted behind the counter, his eyes narrowing. "What now? You got another problem with it already? I told you, that thing's on its last legs. You'd be better off selling it for scrap." Shane stepped forward, his expression calm but cold. "We know what you've been doing, Hank, and now the whole town's about to know too." Donna placed the laptop on the counter, opening it to show the footage they had gathered. Hank's face paled as he watched himself on the screen, deliberately damaging Donna's truck under the guise of making repairs. He swallowed hard, his bravado crumbling as the evidence played out before him. This is nothing," he stammered, his eyes darting around the room. "You don't know what you're talking about." Donna's voice rose, clear and sharp. "I trusted you with my livelihood, and you've been bleeding me dry. You've done this to me and who knows how many others. But it stops now." By then, a small crowd had gathered outside the garage, people from town, truckers passing through, all drawn by the whispered rumors that something was going down at Hank's place. Among them were faces Donna recognized, other victims, other people who had been taken advantage of by Hank's shoddy repairs. Annie appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed, a stern look on her face. "Hank, you've been robbing people blind for years. You think nobody would catch on?" Hank's bravado faltered completely. He knew there was no talking his way out of this. The crowd was getting restless, whispers spreading as people began to realize the extent of his scam. Gus stepped forward, his weathered face hard with anger. "You're done, Hank. No one's bringing their trucks here again." Donna locked eyes with Hank, her voice steady. "You're going to fix my truck, and you're going to do it right this time. And after that, you're going to close this place down before someone gets hurt." Hank's face turned a deep shade of red, his fists clenched at his sides. But he knew the game was up. There was nothing left for him but to comply. Grudgingly, he nodded, and the crowd outside began to disperse, satisfied that justice was finally being served. Over the next few weeks, Donna's truck was repaired properly, and without Hank's interference, it ran like new. Hank had slunk away from town, his reputation in ruins. People stopped going to his garage, and soon after he packed up and left Silver Bend altogether. With Hank gone, Donna felt the weight lifting from her shoulders. It wasn't just the relief of having her truck back in working order, but the satisfaction of knowing she had stood up for herself and for the others who had been cheated by Hank. There was a new sense of respect in the air when she walked into the diner. People nodded to her, some quietly thanking her for what she had done. But there was more than just respect. There was connection, something Donna hadn't realized she'd been missing since her husband's death. The town was rallying around her in small ways. Gus offered to check on her truck regularly, free of charge. Annie made sure Donna's coffee never ran out. And Shane. Well, Shane was there, every day, sitting at the counter or tinkering in the diner's kitchen, offering his help where he could. It was Shane who saw the potential in the diner beyond the greasy spoon fare it had been serving for decades. He suggested changes small at first, like fresher ingredients or a better way to prepare the coffee. Donna watched him, curious, as he slowly began to transform the menu. People started talking about the food, not just the gossip, and soon the diner was buzzing with more energy than it had seen in years. "You've got talent," Donna remarked one evening as they closed up the diner together. The last few customers had trickled out, and the two of them were left alone in the quiet kitchen. Shane smiled faintly, wiping his hands on a towel. "I used to. Lost it somewhere along the way." "Doesn't seem that way to me." Donna crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. She studied him, sensing that there was more to his story than just burnout. "Why'd you leave? The restaurant world, I mean." Shane's expression grew distant, the usual light in his eyes dimming. He ran a hand through his hair, letting out a slow breath. "I thought it was everything I wanted, but the pressure, it gets to you. The critics, the constant grind, the perfection everyone expects. I lost sight of why I started cooking in the first place." Donna nodded. She understood, in her own way. The truck had once been her freedom, her way of making a living on her own terms. But after everything that had happened, it had become a symbol of her struggle, of everything that had weighed her down. "You're finding it again here," she said quietly. "The cooking. The reason you started." Shane looked at her, something soft and unspoken passing between them. For a moment, the conversation wasn't about the diner or the food or even the truck. It was about two people, each rebuilding a part of their lives that had been broken. Word of the diner's transformation spread. Shane's cooking brought in a new wave of customers, and soon the place was busier than it had been in years. It wasn't just a truck stop anymore, it was becoming a gathering place, a hub for the community. People came for the food, but they stayed for the sense of belonging, for the warmth that Donna and Shane cultivated together. The town, which had once felt so isolated and stagnant, began to change. Local farmers started supplying fresh produce, small businesses began to thrive, and there was a renewed sense of pride in Silver Bend. It wasn't just about the diner, it was about the people who came together to support it, to rebuild what had been lost. As for Donna, she found herself at a crossroads. Her truck, once her only source of income, was no longer the defining feature of her life. The diner had become a place where she could not only work but thrive, where she could connect with people in ways she hadn't expected. And then there was Shane. His presence had become a constant in her life, his quiet strength and resilience a mirror of her own journey. It wasn't long before an opportunity presented itself, one that would take Donna and Shane's lives in a new direction. A businessman named Richard came through Silver Bend, stopping at the diner during his travels. He was a sharp, well-dressed man with a serious expression, but after tasting the food and chatting with Donna, his demeanor softened. It turned out Richard had been a victim of a similar mechanic scam in another part of the state, and he was impressed by how Donna had handled her situation. "I've been looking for someone with your kind of grit," Richard said over a cup of coffee one afternoon. "I'm opening a new business, and I need someone to consult on operations. Someone who knows how to turn things around." Donna was floored by the offer. It was a chance to do something new, to build on everything she had learned over the past few months. But as she looked across the diner at Shane, busy at work in the kitchen, she realized that this new chapter didn't have to take her away from Silver Bend or from the life she was building here. Donna and Shane sat at the counter, going over Richard's proposal. It was a big decision, one that could change both of their lives. But for the first time in a long while, Donna wasn't afraid of change. "You think you'll take it?" Shane asked, his voice quiet but curious. Donna nodded slowly. "I think so. But only if you're in." Shane raised an eyebrow. "Me?" She smiled, a warmth spreading through her. "Yeah, you. I can't do this without you. We make a good team." Shane hesitated for a moment, then smiled, a genuine one that reached his eyes. "I guess we do." The diner flourished, becoming more than just a stop on the highway. It became a destination, a place where people came for great food and stayed for the sense of belonging. Donna and Shane worked side by side, turning the small-town diner into something more a reflection of their journey, their resilience, and their partnership. As the months passed, Donna found herself looking forward to each new day, not just for the diner or the truck, but for the possibility of what was to come. And in the quiet moments, when the customers had gone and the world seemed still, she would look at Shane and know that something had shifted between them. It was more than just a partnership now. It was the beginning of something else, a new chapter, full of promise and hope. And for the first time in a long time, Donna felt truly free. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, hit the bell, and drop a comment. Your feedback is greatly appreciated.